Hi guys, and welcome back to second semester of biology. We're starting out this semester with chapter 11, which is looking at how cells grow and then eventually how they divide. So we're going to be starting out today by remembering some things about cells that we learned last semester and then starting to apply those things into the ideas that will lead to cell growth and division. So let's get started. In your life, you have probably at some point had a big cut or abrasion. Maybe you have noticed that your hair and nails just keep growing, constantly getting larger or growing longer. Even maybe the idea has crossed your mind of how did I go? How does anything go from just a single fertilized cell into this full grown individual that is created? And the answer to all of these questions is mitosis. Mitosis is the process of cell division. So mitosis is what takes that single egg cell and creates an entire organism, including healing that organism's cuts and growing that organism's hair and nails as it ages. So all of these things about what mitosis can do makes it pretty clear that it's a pretty important process. And so what we're going to be doing in this chapter is looking at how does mitosis work? How does it create a new cell from pre-existing cells? And so that first concept that cells come from pre-existing cells actually is reference to this first scientist who described that phenomena. Rudolf Virchow is the guy who says every cell from a cell. And so we actually studied him in cell theory. He was the first guy that kind of mentioned that cells don't just spontaneously generate. They are offspring from previous cells. The continuity of life as life continues from generation to generation and throughout our world is based off of mitosis in this process of cell division. Each organism, as we mentioned, begins as a single cell and it grows, and more than grows when it's you and me, it also differentiates. So not only did you start as one cell, but you started as one cell that could be anything. And over the process of those cell divisions, that cell specialized to become a hair cell or to become a skin cell or a stomach cell, or even more importantly, a neuron or a heart cell. Each of those cells has become specialized as they divide. If this process breaks down, if cells no longer care where they're located or what their density is or whether or not their DNA is healthy in order to reproduce, those cells start to form cancer. And cancer is something that touches every single one of our lives. It has touched my life. I know it has touched your life. And in this chapter, ultimately, we can start to have some understanding of what cancer is and how it progresses. And sometimes understanding your enemy, like understanding what cancer is actually really helpful in terms of fear and anxiety and feeling like you are prepared for the world around you. So the process of cell division is very specific depending on the kind of cell that you're talking about. You may recall that there are two kinds of cells, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. And so I'm just going to quickly switch over so we can look at what prokaryotes and eukaryotic cells look like. So what you may recall is that a prokaryotic cell is the simple one, and a eukaryotic cell is the one that has the nucleus. So when we look inside of a prokaryotic cell, like this one, inside of the cell, all there is DNA here, cytoplasm, that's yellow, and ribosomes that are these little sprinkles inside. Just three little things. And the cytoplasm and the ribosomes are kind of spread evenly throughout. So the only thing a prokaryote has to worry about when it divides is dividing its DNA. And so what a prokaryote does is a prokaryote uses something called binary fission. And in binary fission, they're just gonna replicate their DNA and then split in half. It's very, very simple. It's very fast. It also has a lot of mutations, which is good news for a prokaryote, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. A eukaryote has a more complicated cell. So remember, eukaryotes have a nucleus, they have the ribosomes and the cytoplasm, but they also have mitochondria, a Golgi complex that needs to get replicated and divided, smooth ER and rough ER that needs to be evenly distributed to the two daughter cells, lysosomes and peroxisomes, which all need to get evenly distributed to the two daughter cells. So eukaryotic division, first of all, their DNA is longer and more complicated. And then secondly, for a eukaryote, you also have to divide all of the organelles, all of the little pieces, the organelles that are inside of the cell. So eukaryotic cell division is much more complicated. For eukaryotes, the kind of cell division is just kind of interesting to think about whether cell division is reproduction. So for a unicellular organism, like say a protista, Giardia is an example of a unicellular eukaryote. For Giardia, all it would need to do is divide, and that Giardia has made two Giardias. It has reproduced and it has divided itself. But for a multicellular organism, that's not true. So for a multicellular organism, the process of cell division, like mitosis, making an exact copy of your cells, that's used for growth and development and healing and maintenance. But reproduction for multicellular eukaryotes like you and like me is done through a process of meiosis. And that's actually a whole nother chapter that we're going to jump into later. For us, when we say cell reproduction, we do not mean organism reproduction. We do not mean making a baby human. That's a process for meiosis and fertilization, etc. So we'll come back to that one. So the type of cell division that we do depends on the type of cell. So prokaryotes are going to do binary fission. Eukaryotes are going to do mitosis for cell division. Eukaryotes are going to do mitosis. Okay. So prokaryotes are going to divide by using something called binary fission. So binary fission copies the DNA that's inside of the prokaryote, and then it splits the DNA and it just pulls apart the cytoplasm, and that's it. That's all it needs to do. And so it just takes the two pieces, and once it's big enough and the DNA's been copied, it just pulls apart into two pieces, and now it is two new cells. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched The Big Bang Theory, but this is a video, this is just a little clip of Sheldon. They say that he, is so unique that he's gonna reproduce by binary fission.
More pad thai, please. 4 servings. You might want to slow down a bit, buddy. Just one more bite.
So he's just really hungry, right? So he's eating and he's getting to this big enough moment. And then suddenly...
Son, are you okay? I'm just so full.
Boom, right? So that's the concept of binary fission. It's just this idea that you are able to just grow to a certain size and then split, okay? No babies, right? There's no like infant stage. There's no baby stage. That's actually what they were talking about in the show, was like, can you imagine a baby Sheldon? It would be so crazy. And so they were just saying, no, he's just going to be formed as an adult, right? Like they just start as an adult. And so that's the idea of what binary fission is. Eukaryotes, on the other hand, go through a process of mitosis for normal cell division. And what I mean by normal cell division is that not to make gametes, not for sexual reproduction. Eukaryotes are going to use mitosis in order to grow and repair and differentiate. So if the organism happens to be unicellular, then mitosis is also how it reproduces. But that's really not where our focus is going to be. We're going to be focusing on multicellular organisms. If the organism is multicellular, like you and like me, then this is just how it grows, divides, and matures. So reproduction involves meiosis and gametes and fertilization, etc. And that's something we're going to talk about later. But for this chapter, for the remainder of this chapter, we're going to focus on this process of mitosis and how does one eukaryotic cell right here, split over time to become two daughter cells. And that's going to be where we spend our time and focus in this chapter. All right, you guys, I will see you next time.